Welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, the owner and head coach of Nutrition, Coaching, and Life, and the host of the Nutrition and Life podcast, Lisa Franz, is with us. Lisa, how are you today? Good to see you.
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak with you.
Same here, same here. Before we get into all the interesting things about you, if you're watching us and listening for the very first time, thanks for making us part of your week. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and the LinkedIn platform. And of course, we have the audio version of this episode up hopefully within the next month or so due to scheduling or perhaps sooner. Thanks for making us part of your week. If you have a question or a comment and you're watching this show right now, drop it in the comments section. If you're listening on your phone, drop it in the comments section for Lisa or myself. We'll do our best to answer those questions for you. But Lisa, great to have you here. We had a fantastic pre-interview chat. I'm excited about getting into all things nutrition because unfortunately, we all need that and lots more of it. So definitely can't wait to hear you about your expertise in that area and plus some awesome stuff about you. So let's start there. So obviously you're a nutrition and life coach. You're a podcaster like myself, but somehow it was a journey for you to get from there to here. So let's talk about there. A little bit about your childhood, where you're from, and how you got to that place, from that place to where you are doing what you're doing right now. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Yes. So I grew up in Germany. I'm originally from Germany. My family still lives over there. And in 2009, I actually left Germany to move to New Zealand for about 10 years. And then since 2019 have been globe-trotting and living all over the place. So I'm currently in South America. I'm speaking to you from Bolivia. Yeah, that is part of me. I love to travel, love to explore new countries. And I somehow always knew that Germany was not meant for me necessarily. I'm very proud to be German, but generally speaking, not the country where I'd like to live. I have two sisters. One of them also lives in Germany, the other one in London, and my parents are over there as well. So I had a very protected, safe sort of childhood, but I was always very passionate about physiology or like anatomy, just helping people feel better in their bodies. That's always fascinated me. And then when I graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to study exercise science, health promotion, and nutrition to kind of go into more the prevention route. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Like, I don't actually work with necessarily like clinically obese people. I try to more help people on the front end, just simply establishing healthier life patterns so that we don't even get to that place.
Makes sense. You sparked something very interesting to me. I got to ask this question before we move on. What was it about the inner Lisa, if you will, that didn't seem to mesh with Germany and your humble beginnings? What do you think was
to be honest, many things. So while there are many great things about Germany, such as like structure, organization, being driven and success oriented, I've always felt it a little bit too rigid, too locked into, you gotta do this, you have to do that. And I'm a bit of a rebel by nature. So if you tell me to do something, I'm almost certainly gonna be like trying to do the opposite or prove you wrong, that that's not necessarily the way. And that is definitely a big factor in that I just wanted to carve out my own way. I don't just want to take on a certain 9-to-5 job just because someone tells me to. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just that's also something I try to do now as a coach, to encourage people to make conscious decisions. So even if you consciously decide, I want to have this piece of cake, and you enjoy it, you truthfully, savor every single bite, that is awesome. Like, I really applaud people for that. But I think the issue is when we feel like food is taking over and has control over us. And the same thing is if we feel like we're victims of our circumstances. Oh, I can't move the city, I can't get out of the job because blah, 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 blah. And I've just always felt like I want to create my life by design. So that's really the biggest part. And then there are smaller things like, I freaking hate the cold. I love warm weather. So I just, having 6 months of where you need to wear several layers is just way too much for me. And then I guess the third layer would simply be curiosity. I've always just wanted to learn more and get in touch with different nations and cultures and ways of living to pick and choose certain aspects of someone's way of living that I like as well, and of course discard of others. But yeah, those three things I think were my biggest drivers.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now that I hear from you, sounds like you're kind of living a nomadic lifestyle. If I understand right from our conversation, you love to travel, which is clear. And you've been in 56 countries and counting, which is an amazing feat. That's incredible. Tell me, what is there a method to the madness? I mean, madness in the most respectful way possible. Is there is there a method to the madness of when you move, when you decide to stay for a while? Is there a certain amount of time you stay? Is it when you get bored? Is it something that what exactly is the reasons that will make you kind of stay or move in this globe-trotting lifestyle that you're living right now?
Well, the methods are various. So, for example, during the pandemic, of course, it was kind of limited by which countries are open to people even coming in, and where people could fly to and so on. So, for example, during the pandemic, I was in Dubai, in Bali, in Mallorca, and Mexico. So, those were some of the places where it was easier to be in and things were not quite as restricted. And nowadays, it's really kind of determined by several things. So when I first started off nomading, I had no issue being in a place like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. And as you can imagine, that does get quite fatiguing, or like you get fatigued from that, because every time you go somewhere you have to find a new grocery store, a new gym, meeting new people, setting yourself up again, and then by the time you're kind of settled in, you move again. So as the years have gone on, this being my 8th year of nomading, I have kind of like had more of a desire to have a base, and then from that base still go on shorter trips. So I have actually been here in Bolivia for about a year and a half now, but within that I went to Costa Rica, went to Montenegro, went to like various different places and just used this as my base. And I'm actually really liking it. So I don't have any plans of leaving this base for now, but before coming here, I was also in Colombia for a couple of years, kind of based there. And that's sort of, I go more by intuition. There's not necessarily like, by the time I'm 50, I want to have hit 100 countries, and that's why I'm only staying here X amount of time.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so you talked a lot about struggling through various diets and things like that. What have you figured out about yourself in the process of looking to become more healthy and building muscles and just a fascination with nutrition? Is there something about you that was an integral part?
Oh, yes, as well.
Yeah,
for sure. Yes, absolutely. So just like I always kind of knew that Germany was not my place to be in always, I always had the thought of, I want to live a life that I enjoy. I feel like life is too short to just be eating like broccoli and chicken, and particularly if you want to.
Wait a minute, what's wrong with broccoli?
Absolutely nothing, but I don't really want to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, especially if I'm traveling, I want to try some of the local cuisine, or if you're inviting me for a birthday party, I also want to have a slice of cake and like all these kind of things. And I always thought that kind of freedom was in opposition to having a body that I wanted, or that I would even just feel good in. And so that's why I put myself through all these various different diets and thought that this, like, one of them has to be the solution to my problem and would be able to make me quote unquote happy and healthy. And lo and behold, all of them sort of resulted into a worse relationship with food, resulted into me feeling more restricted and sort of like planning out my binges, and just really unhealthy relationship with food, until I basically learned that in the end, any kind of diet, no matter if we do keto, if we do paleo, intermittent fasting, whatever it might be, if it elicits weight loss, it's only because it creates a calorie deficit. So in the end, how, like, calorie deficit for the listener, meaning less calories coming in, less energy coming in than what your body is burning. And so when I realized this, I was like, this is actually like a really brilliant method, because it gives me a lot of flexibility. That means that as long as I'm sort of covering my base of like 80%, high quality foods, I can fill the rest the 20% or so with some fun foods like a pizza from time to time, or going out on date night and having a glass of wine if I really wanted to, or whatever it might be. So that gave me really food freedom, and it was like an eye-opening to me, where I wanted to just teach as many people as possible, because I don't know about you, but I have heard from all corners all the time, like, this is the best diet, this is the best diet. But in the end, everybody was kind of struggling, or is struggling, with putting weight back on, going on a diet, putting weight on, going on a diet. So all this yo-yo cycling, none of it seemed really sustainable to me. And so I really made it my mission, or am making it my mission, to teach other people that life doesn't have to feel so restrictive. And yes, you can have both. You can have a body that you love and feel really great in, and at the same time you can also live a lifestyle that's not super rigid, where you're just eating out of Tupperware containers and chicken and broccoli and maybe rice.
Nothing wrong with chicken and broccoli, but I get it. I hear what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming that you are an avid label reader. I've always been that since I was a young person, but obviously you don't know what you're reading. You don't know what you're seeing and what it actually can do to your body. That's not in the ingredients either. You don't know what the impact is and why it's there and what the point of it is. So there's a lot there, but obviously you are a label reader. Why is that important in this day and time for us to do that now more than ever?
Oh, such a great question. I think because we have more processed foods than ever. So back in the day, I would say, or maybe even just going back 50 years, going back 100 years, there were a lot less things in our supermarket or grocery stores that contained 20 ingredients or more. I would say most things were like, okay, here you have maybe your bread flour, maybe you have your refined sugar, maybe some butter or whatever, but those are still things that are either single ingredient or maybe a couple of ingredients. And nowadays, when you walk through the aisles, the majority of the things like chips and cookies and frozen pizza and whatnot. And so with all of that, it's not just that people process it, but it's often that we put in chemical things, or preservatives, or like artificial things essentially. And just by having more highly processed things, we tend to consume more as well, because the data is actually really clear. There's so many studies that demonstrate if you have two groups of people, one of them you give access to nothing but whole foods. And by whole foods, I mean like meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, some healthy grains and starches, that kind of stuff, but not processed, obviously. So you give that one group access to that, and then you have another group that has only access to processed things. On average, and they also changed the group. So a couple of days, the one group was following the one diet, and the other group was following the other food pattern. And so on average, someone who had access to the processed things would eat 500 calories more per day. And wow. I mean, for someone listening, this can be as much as like 25% or more of your total daily requirements. If you're a smaller female, your daily requirement might only be like 1,700 calories. And if you eat an extra 500 just because it's already processed, that adds up over time. And obviously that manifests in extra body fat, which we don't want.
Wow. I'd love to get your context on, on the United States or American side of it, but I don't think you live here, so I can't use you in that way. But be honest about it. Is it really hard to eat healthy? And I mean, as far as not just the habit, but I mean also how much it costs. Mm-hmm. Is it really hard to eat healthy and maintain that where you're living now and where you have been living? Kind of open up take us behind the curtain a little bit. Has it been expensive and hard to do that? Or is it easy? If it's easy, how can we do it, even in our situation where we are in the United States? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's an important question to address. And I do come to the US like once a year minimum for conferences or to visit friends or some colleagues as well. And I definitely would say that it's not they don't make it easy for people, not just in terms of like food quality, but also let's just look at, if you think about when was the last time you watched TV and there was an advertisement for bananas or other kinds of fruit? Like probably never. But if you think about what was the last, yeah, what was the last time, last TV ad you said in regards to food? Probably like, I don't know, some kind of diner or like a frozen whatever, or yeah, you know, you name it, something processed. So you already, you start craving that. Then you go to the supermarket, or actually you drive to the supermarket, so making your life even harder because we're limiting movement. Then you're in the supermarket, and again, like the percentage of actually quote unquote healthy things might be 10 to 20%, and everything else jumps out of you. The advertisement is even bigger. Oftentimes these food companies for more processed things have more money or invest more money in making their product stand out, and therefore it's not as sexy to say like, oh, here's an apple, or here's a low-fat Greek yogurt. Maybe that's still something super healthy, but apart from that, it really isn't made easy. And then add to that the layer of that portions, generally speaking, when we're eating out, when you're purchasing things, are huge, particularly in the US. That is definitely something I have noticed comparing it to Europe, that your guys' portion sizes, unfortunately, are very big, even if you go to a restaurant, and then it's like an extra, I don't know, 50 cents to upgrade to a large. So like most people are like, oh, why shouldn't I upgrade to a large by spending an extra 50 cents? But yeah, so from that perspective, it's definitely not made easy for people. And the next layer would be that the things that are processed are usually a lot more palatable. And what I mean by that is we can eat a lot more of them without feeling full. Again, because people have actually invested money into making it as delicious for you as possible. That combination of fats and sugars and salt, and you're just like, this is so much better than the apple that Lisa's trying to get me to eat, or something like that. So yeah, unfortunately, availability is not our friend there. And then of course we have DoorDash, we have all kinds of delivery services where it's just literally at our fingertips, where most cultures, like here, yeah, sure, it's unfortunately, globally speaking, from what I'm observing, it is increasing all over the place. The food availability, the food processing, even the increase in portion sizes. But what can we do in order to mitigate that? I guess we have to have some sort of restrictions for ourselves. While I am the biggest fan of talking about food freedom, that doesn't mean that I'm allowing myself to eat whatever I want, wherever I want, whenever I want. So I still, like I alluded to earlier, try to eat 80-90% whole foods. And of that, not all of them are necessarily very costly. Take things like eggs, take things like oats, rice, potatoes, even chicken is reasonably inexpensive, if you will. Nice yogurt, other kind of fruit like berries or so, depending on the season, of course, is not necessarily super, super expensive, or much more expensive than ordering in or then getting a frozen meal or something like that. So I do think oftentimes people overcomplicate things, and we want, a recipe with 20 different ingredients, where I'm like, geez, just brown up some nice meat and add a nice starch, maybe some sweet potato to it, and maybe broccoli or another vegetable that you like. And you have 3 ingredients, and that makes for a wonderful meal. You can add some nice flavor by adding some herbs, some spices, and that's about it. You really don't need that much. And same thing for your breakfast, like oats with a bit with eggs in them, or with protein powder. Lunch, have a nice wrap with some veggies, some greens, and some chicken in it as well. Like, there you go, you have 3 meals, and that doesn't necessarily cost you an arm and a leg. Of course, if people overcomplicate it and try to buy everything extra organic and from a farm, and then, okay, no, I can't have the farm-raised salmon, I need to get the wild salmon from wherever with the specifics, I don't know, whatever seeds that you can only find and source in Peru in the highest mountain, then sure, your grocery bill is going to add up. But it's also absolutely possible to eat healthy on a budget.
I love it. What's one of the biggest challenges you've seen as a coach in the nutrition realm? What's one of the biggest challenges you've seen, without giving any personal information about a client? Just one of the biggest challenges, like, wow.
Well, I'll give you two things. So the first one that I think everybody struggles with is just consistency. Literally consistency. If I could wave my magic wand and give something to all my clients or anybody listening, it would be, here's the gift of consistency. Please be consistent, because it doesn't have to be the huge strides. You don't have to cut your calories in half. You don't have to cut out complete food groups. You don't need to train 6 times per week or whatever. Just, find a small workout regime of 2 to 3 times per week that you can be consistent with, not just in half a year's time, not just in 6 years' time, but I'd love for you to work out until your very last day when you're 90 or 100 years old and still somewhat active. Of course, the type of training is going to change, but I want you to be active in old age. And same thing with nutrition. It should feel like it's sustainable. So often we think about steps too big in the beginning, and we cannot be consistent with them. If you say from tomorrow, I'm never ever eating sugar again, and then again, like go to a birthday party and everyone is eating cake, and then you feel like you failed, and so then you decide to sabotage the whole entire weekend and start back over on Monday. No, let's just work on consistency. So I would say that overall is really the biggest thing. And I cannot think of one specific client example, but several that add up together. And that's really just the magic of two things. So pairing resistance training for beginners that can literally just look like doing some body weight workouts, for more advanced people, or as you move on, and incorporating the resistance of some weights. Pairing that with a sufficiently high protein intake, that is honestly the magic of body recomposition. And what I mean by that is turning fat into muscle. If we do that consistently while kind of monitoring the quantity of what we're eating too, honestly, your body can transform so much. You don't even need to look at the scale anymore. You just need to have patience and play the long game of like a year, 2 years, and you'll be like, whoo, my midsection is shrinking, but at the same time, my arms are gaining definition, my back is gaining definition. Maybe if you're a woman, you want your booty to look a little bit nicer, and that really comes through the magic of consistent training and also protein intake. Sorry.
On my own show. I don't think that's ever happened. Good job. Keep going.
Well, I'm a foreigner. This is not my native language, so you can blame it on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's not the reason why that happened, but okay. I love it. You mentioned consistency. I think that's something that any coach worth their salt is going to mention. Is that the magic ingredient for fat loss, or is there something else that we might be missing?
I would say if you take consistency, resistance training, and protein, and monitoring your food quantity, you're off to a very good start. And I think consistency is not just important for body composition or health, but really like for literally everything in life. I don't know about you, but anything I have achieved or where I feel like I've had success, even on a relationship level, it's consistency, is consistently showing up for yourself, for other people, putting in the work, putting in one foot in front of the other, even or especially when times are hard, and because anybody can keep moving when life is easy and you don't have any struggles at all.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about a broken metabolism. Exactly what is that? Help us out with that.
Well, quite often I hear, because I mostly work with women, and many of them that come to me, they say, oh, Lisa, I think my metabolism is broken. I'm doing all the things that people tell me to do. I'm doing all the things I used to do that used to work for weight loss, and suddenly nothing is happening anymore, or maybe I'm even gaining weight. And then the term broken metabolism is being thrown around. By now, we actually know that there's no such thing as a broken metabolism. If anything, your metabolism adapts. And what that means is maybe you have eaten in a very low caloric state for a long time. So maybe you were doing a diet, and after the diet, you were afraid to add the food back in. So you just stayed at a really low calorie level, or maybe you live a very stressful life and you don't take the time to eat sufficiently. And so your body's super smart. Its only goal is really to keep you alive. And therefore, what it does with time, is literally like down regulating your metabolic output. So kind of like a laptop. If you unplug it for a while, it's fine, nothing happens, everything runs super smooth. But then after a while, when it's going into like a lower power state and it's noticing energy is not coming in, it goes into like the screen gets a bit more dim, the backup processes don't run anymore, and so on. And that's exactly what your body does with regards to the metabolism. So it's not broken, because as soon as you quote unquote plug it back in, as soon as you start adding food back in gradually, strategically, not suddenly, I'm not saying going from eating 1,000 calories suddenly eating 2,000, that you would definitely put on fat that way. But gradually bringing it back up to what your calorie maintenance is at, or should be like. So calorie maintenance meaning exactly the same amount of energy going in as going out. And if you do that and you stay at that level for a while, you're basically telling your body, hey, I'm taking care of you again. I'm replenishing your energy. I want your hormones to be running well again. I want you to sleep well again. I want you to have sufficient energy for your work, your cognitive things that you're doing, and so on. And after usually takes several months, to be honest, and then we can try to go into a weight loss phase again, and your metabolism will actually respond again. So your body is super, super smart. The metabolism doesn't break, but it takes some strategic, quote unquote, healing for the body to do what you want it to do in the end.
Love it. We got time for a couple more questions, Lisa. So let me ask you about the impetus for your podcast, Nutrition in Life. Why did you decide to do that? There's a sea of podcasters out here. It seems like everybody's trying to start one. Why did you decide to do that? What have you been seeing since you made that decision?
Oh, yeah, love the question. So I've run my podcast for 3.5 years now. And initially the drive to start it was threefold. The first one was, most of my clients tend to ask me the same things. Lisa, what's a high protein food? Lisa, is my metabolism broken, or can a metabolism break? All these kind of things that we just spoke about, actually. And so I was like, okay, of course, I'm happy to explain. That's what you're paying me for. But at the same time, here's an additional podcast. You can listen to this. Maybe this will be explanatory. That was part number one. Part number two was, in that year, one of my personal main goals was to become a better public speaker, or speaker in general, because it's one thing responding to my clients in a voice message or email, but it's another thing being put on the spot and responding to a topic in real time, as you very well know, obviously. And then the third one was literally because I wanted to network. I mean, as an online coach, as a digital nomad, sometimes it can be a little bit lonely, or you think like, are other people going through these challenges? Or as a coach, what do they do? And so since then, I have invited, or I'm always inviting, experts, researchers, medical professionals, other coaches, or just people that are passionate about mindset and self-improvement to come on the show. And I'm loving it, to be honest. It's been a journey. I've put out one episode every week for the first year, and then I increased it to 2. So I've been going steady, have not broken speaking of consistency, I have not broken my strain since October 2022. So yes.
Congratulations. That's so good. You're in the perfect community to build that audience. So excited to hear that, man. I love it. I'm glad to be a part of your community, by the way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
If you can give us 3 of your top travel tips. I wasn't prepared to ask that, but now in hindsight, I'm like, you know what? She's traveling everywhere. She's a globetrotter for real. Maybe she can offer some tips. So do you have about 3 of your top tips for travel you can share with our audience?
You mean like as in destinations, or when it comes to nutrition and travel?
In your case, I probably would say part nutrition and part just like good habits, how to pack, how to travel in new areas you haven't been in before, what to do, what not to do. If you got more than 3, I'll take them. But that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you how I select where I'm staying usually in a certain place. Of course, I choose my travel destination, as I mentioned, because I want a warm location, right now I'm not close to a beach, but before this destination, I also usually wanted to be close to a beach. I love the water. I love being able to see good sunset or sunrise. So that was a big criteria for me. But now it's more like I select my Airbnb or the place that I want to stay at, hotel or so, by checking out, is there a grocery store, a gym, and a good cafe within 10 minutes of walking? I love walking places.
That cafe costs important.
That's a very good point. And in many American cities, unfortunately, walking is not made super easy. So you need a car or so. But I prefer to.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if you're within 5 to 10 minutes, still, at least it's a shorter Uber ride or whatever you're paying for. So that's very important for me because I still want to work out no matter where I am. I still want to have access to convenient food, and since I work from cafes or from home, from wherever I'm staying, I also want to have access to a good cafe. And yeah, if I can have like a nice park nearby or some other place where I can go for a walk, those are some of my priorities. On top of that, I usually see that I don't have to take a red-eye flight. Back in the day, I was just like cheapest option, no matter what. And then it would sometimes take me like literally 60 hours to get to my destination just because I was a poor backpacker. And by now I'm like, my sleep is way too valuable for me. I am doing everything to protect my sleep and like literally seeing that I can, even if I have to spend a little bit more money sometimes, but just making sure I can travel throughout the day and go to bed at a reasonable hour or get up at a reasonable hour. So I would also recommend that to people because I think sometimes we're just too inclined to just look at the finances or think, oh, if we fly during the night, we can have the extra day when we arrive first thing in the morning, but you're not considering that you might be completely groggy and setting yourself up for a tired week ahead or so. I also personally always travel with protein powder and protein bars simply because this is the macronutrient that's just hardest to get by. It's so easy to find carbs anywhere. You know, you can find fruit, you can find some crackers, you can find rice cakes, whatever. Like carbs are easy to get by. Fats are easy to get by. You can buy some nuts. It's very, very easy, but protein is often the hardest. And I don't want to be at the airport and my only option being some sort of horrible looking muffin that's going to put me to sleep afterwards, and I'd rather just have a protein bar and then when I get there have an actual wonderful meal. So I guess those would be some of the broad tips that I have.
I love it. I gotta ask this one. I know this is an extra question I'm adding, so answer it as quickly as you can. While we're doing that, I'm putting your contact information on the screen, your instagram.com/nutrition coaching and life. You can find Lisa. She has free content, recipe guides, training videos, mindset coaching, all that's on her Instagram. So you can find her there. Instagram.com/nutrition coaching and life. All one word. All right. So I gotta ask this because I have a good friend that she's a traveler. It's all she wants to do. As a matter of fact, I think she's about to sell her house if she hasn't already, just so she can travel. That blows my mind. That's just me. But for me, I can't help but think about some of the inherent dangers of being in certain places and not knowing where you're going. And so do you have a tip for that? Because people are traveling now and they may not be doing it as consistently as you are, but they're going to places that are essentially unknown. Mm-hmm. Googling a location is one thing. Looking at a magazine is one thing, but it doesn't always give you the full picture. So any wisdom regarding that for our listeners and viewers who might be travelers who may want to be?
For sure, and particularly traveling as a solo female traveler is not always the easiest or maybe safest. But to be honest, I have nothing has ever happened to me. I've only had good experiences with people all over the globe, and I guess to a large extent because I don't really go out at night at all. Like I don't drink alcohol. Yes, I might go for a nice meal, but the latest I'm usually home is like 10 p.m. at the latest. And in the dark, I don't ever walk anywhere. So I always would take an Uber, and I wouldn't take a taxi anywhere just because you don't have anything, registered. You don't know the plate. People might take you somewhere else. So I literally would always recommend taking a driving app or something, a transport app. And the other thing, just not carrying around large amounts of money or anything that looks super valuable. So I wouldn't put on like really expensive jewelry or so that's just attracting people, and kind of being observant, like how people interact, not staring at certain people or just not being reckless and leaving things out. Let's say if you're going to a cafe to co-work, don't leave your stuff at the table and then go to the bathroom or something like that. I mean, people are pretty reckless when it comes to that, or just like too naive, perhaps. In many countries,
Don't take your laptop to the bathroom. That's why.
that's a very, very good point. But yeah, those would be my main tips.
I love it. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. You've been a fantastic guest, and so much insight came from you in nutrition and travel. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, anybody listening who is interested in getting in touch, or even just who enjoyed our conversation, leave me a message saying what you thought of our episode.
Thank you very much. Owner and head coach of Nutrition, Coaching in Life, and the host of the Nutrition in Life podcast, Lisa Franz. Thanks for being here, Lisa. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. If you guys are watching and listening for the first time, again, thanks for making us part of your week. If you see our episode and you have a comment, drop it in there. We'll still be able to see it. Love to hear from you guys on this episode and all the insights that Lisa has brought. She offers mindset coaching, recipe guides, all kind of things on her Instagram. So definitely jump in and see those. And thanks again. That's Lisa. I'm Mr. U. Thanks again for watching One-on-One with Mr. U. Have a fantastic day. Thanks.